This is going to be part 2 of exploring Mulgore in this series. I'm also going to be exploring Thunderbluff in this episode as well. I know I kept you waiting, but today is the day. So I head on to explore the northern half of Mulgore. Going along the road, there were not a lot of enemies, so that wasn't too bad. The first place I wanted to check out, going clockwise, was the area where the dwarves would have been. Of course, I was followed on by a bunch of wolves, and it got to the point where I couldn't run anymore and they were still following me, so I did eventually have to turn around and fight. Especially once they caught up to me and I couldn't run at all because they just kept stunning me. Jackasses. Anyway, once that was over, I headed up to the dwarven area, but there were no dwarves. There were instead rock noses. There were all different types of rock noses, including a crystal one and a couple of sulfur ones. I even saw a rock nose king in the back there. Now, rock nose kings seem to have different power levels depending on location and size. I didn't know what the power level of this rock nose king was, so I played it cautious for now, and I decided to clear the area before I pulled him. For all I know, it could have been Landslide shrunken down. Landslide is basically a world boss that is a Rocknose King. But as I finally pulled him, I attacked him and saw he only had 640 health, which means he's basically a normal Rocknose King. So he would have been easy to kill, so I just go ahead and take him out. I went to loot him, hoping I can get his head, but it did not drop. I know the best way to get a head is to use a cleaver, but I didn't have one on me at the time, so the pickaxe was the next best thing to use. You can see Thunderbluff off into the distance. I don't go there quite yet. First, I wanted to head up to the cave here. Now, in the normal World of Warcraft, when you do the Spirit Wolf quest, the Spirit Wolf takes you up to this cave where there's a Tauren quest giver, and then he eventually leads you to the Red Rocks. But here, it's actually like a small cave that has Alliance in it. Oh, hell no. I was not going to take that. The Alliance do not belong in Mulgore, so I'm going to purge them from this cave. I also found a ton more black ice, so it was another chance to loot some and give it to my followers to take back home with me afterward. The cave itself wasn't that big. It was basically one room with several entertainers and a couple of other warriors, so I left shortly afterward and decided it's finally time to head to Thunderbluff. The elevators were going up and down, which again surprised me, but the real question is, would they work? I walked on without jumping to see if I would get caught on or not, and sure enough I didn't. It went up fairly smooth too. As it reached the top, I walked off, and sure enough, the elevator worked perfectly. It actually works a lot better than some private servers I've played on, where you can get stuck and even fall off of the elevator. So that surprised me greatly, but in a good way. Finally, I see some Tauren where the Tauren should be. While there's not as many Tauren in Thunderbluff, there are sure a hell of a lot more here than everywhere else I've been. It was kind of strange to see a Haruman statue here though, so I didn't know what this was about. Though, as you come to see later on in this episode, at least in the next couple of minutes, Thunderbluff is actually a religious site on this map. But first, before I talk about that, look at this Bulwark of Azeroth. This is the newer model, I think, from Legion. But anyway, why is the model here, but I cannot acquire it? Give me that shield, Dev. I want that shield. I checked around to see if this guy would sell it, but he didn't. There also seems to be a stable here too, just like in Ogmar and the few Alliance towns that I've been to. But I already have a horse. I actually have 2 horses, so I didn't really bother on taking the baby horse. It is kind of weird how there are baby horses in the stable just to take, but then they have shopkeepers that sell you horses. Why would you buy a horse when you have a baby horse? Also, this horse is way too excited for whatever reason, and I don't even want to know why. The little pond out front, though, has some little ships in it, which was kind of cute. But I headed off to the Hunter Rise, and this is where we're going to start talking about the religious stuff. But first, Hunter Pet. This guy actually sells you a Crest Lacerda pet, since there are none on the map, so that's actually a good thing. You can see right behind me, that's what it looks like. It's a creature from the Sipta map, so it's not from the vanilla map. And over here, just like the other guy, is a Sipta creature, the Lynx. This guy sells them as well. I feel that's good because you've not been able to see any of them in-game so far, so having a vendor to sell you them as pets is always a good alternative than having a bunch of babies running around. But anyway, as I headed on into the hunter tent, you see now there are snake men, which I thought was absolutely strange. Why would there be snake men? And not only that, there were followers of Jebel Sag in here. Well, that's where it comes down to the city being the religious area. So every single of the rises in Thunderbluff have 2 to 3 of the different religions from Conan Exiles available. There are the different worshippers like you see here with the Jebel Sag priests, but as you go into the various tents, there are also the teachers who will teach you the various religions. Now, most of them you can learn passively, but Jebel Sag is one that in the normal game, you would have to learn by doing a dungeon in order to acquire it. There's the Acolyte of Set, so you can learn the different emotes for Set. But right next to him would be the Jebel Sag, which you would see.
Come to me. You have nothing to fear of me, human. I am simply lonely as I await my return to the misty lands. I would like to talk.
Once I left the Set guy, I go over to see the Jebel Sag guy, and it was actually the hyena that you would find out into the desert who talks to you. He is friendly. He's the only were hyena in the game that is friendly. Now this guy, he, on this map, teaches you how to learn the Jebel Sag shrine, but he doesn't teach you how to go to the dungeon, which makes sense because why would the Jebel Sag dungeon be on this map?
If I am gone when you return, know that I have returned whence I came.
I did learn it because I'm just used to always going for the Jebel Sag religion on any other time I play this game. That's just the god that I worship in this game every single time. I look around and I see he's got the Sipta taxidermy trophies too, and I really wanted to learn how to make those. I haven't yet found any of the taxidermy recipes, so I have no idea where to find those. I head on over to the Blood Elf tent that you saw pass when we were heading on into the bigger tent. And it was kind of funny because when I go inside, I see a frame of a cosplayer who was cosplaying as Kalefess, which is kind of funny. There were a couple of profession NPCs in here too, but there was not a lot other than that. It was kind of like a small inn. I head over to the upper rise of Thunderbluff. This is normally where Karen Bloodhoof would be. And to my disappointment, Karen Bloodhoof is nowhere to be seen on this map. There were a couple of Zandalari trolls, which makes no sense why they would be here. I even headed inside to see if there would be a Karen. There was a Tauren, but it was not Karen. It was just a normal Tauren. I guess he'll have to do for now. I found some more merchants on the inside, and this one actually sold a legendary repair kit, but I didn't have any money on me to buy it, so I just continued on. It was nice that this city actually has a lot more merchants than Orgrimmar. Though, unfortunately, a lot of them, I did not know what the hell they were even selling because it was all in German. I know the owner of this mod did say he wanted to eventually make a English version of it, but he hasn't done it just of yet. So, as you see me talking to all these different merchants, I just have no idea what they're even selling. And I don't have the gold on hand to buy it to find out what they are selling. Anyway, after my little lag spike later, I go to the Spirit Rise where there are followers of Ymir. Ymir is kind of like the Thor or Odin of this game. It's where all the Vikings worship. I go on inside and there's a bunch of Ymir orcish priests, which I found kind of funny. But then next to them, there were disciples of Yogg, which were trolls, which I think is pretty appropriate. As I headed into the back, there were also followers of Mitra. I found that one actually kind of interesting because Mitra is kind of like, if you had to compare to real-world religion, it's kind of like the Christianity of this game, close at least to it. So, them being next to the god of cannibalism and another god, which is just a pagan god, it was kind of funny. But after I left, I went into the second rise, where I found a tent full of the taxidermy stuff as well. And I saw a prompt to hit E. So I kept clicking around until I finally found a book that taught me Taxidermy 2, which is all that taxidermy stuff you see sitting around from the Isle of Sipta. Finally, I found something that I was looking for on this map. But first, I headed over to the Elder Rise, where... Okay. So we have Dominatrix, Orcs, and Slave Naked Night Elves. I talked to one of them, which was a merchant, but again, I couldn't read what she was selling. And, oh my god, it's a male slave and the dominatrix. Yeah, so then I realized that this area was not only an area of Zaft, but it was also of Derketo. Derketo being the goddess of pleasure. So this entire area was basically a pleasure house. I headed down underneath the rise where the cave would be, you know, the pools of vision. Sure enough, there was a cave there full of spiders. At first I thought they were going to attack me, but they didn't. And then I remembered, up top, there were followers of Zath. Zath is the spider god in this game. So I went to look around to see if there was maybe a priest of Zath, and sure enough, there was one there by the water. Anyway, I finished up with Thunderbluff and I headed down. This area over here normally is where the harpies would be, but instead I found a bunch of black and brown bears, including baby bears. And I couldn't resist it, and I went up to grab the baby bear, only for the black bear to attack me. After I killed the bear, I headed further up where I saw some, it looked like mountain lions. I got closer to double check, and yep, they were mountain lions. So why are there mountain lions here, but not where they should have been in the Red Cloud Mesa? I mean, technically they should be all over Mulgore, since they are in actual World of Warcraft. But hey, at least I found some, so that's better than nothing. I killed a few of them and continued to look around. I went over to where the Venture Co area would be. You know, like where the well is and you would have all the Venture Co dudes. I didn't find a well, but I found instead, it looked like a Nordheimer home. I expected them to be enemies, so I was ready for that and drew my axe as I got closer. Once one of them spotted me, they headed over to try to attack. Turns out they were Blackhand, not Nordheimers. Blackhand are actually very easy to kill as they're only tier 2 enemies. More like iron quality, rather. So, killing them was no big deal. Anyway, I am almost done with Mulgore. There was just one last place for me to explore, and that would have been the Venture Co cave. But first, I got distracted by finding a king boar. This is the first time I've seen a king boar on this map, so of course I had to run up and kill it. You can see how large it is compared to the normal boars. They don't really drop anything noteworthy that the other boars would not, but hey, I wanted to kill it anyway. I eventually did make it to the Venture Co cave. There was no one outside to greet me, which is fine, but as I got near the entrance, oh boy, there were a ton of them. And they all looked very geared. They were. But we managed to get rid of the first ones in the front, and we continued our way into the cave. They were all Sumerians, just like the ones near Ratchet, so they were all fairly well geared, and they hit pretty hard too. This cave also had a ton of star metal laying around as well. While I did loot some star metal early on in my playthrough, it was nice to find another source of star metal. I did loot some while I was here, but I was more focused on trying to figure out on where to go. This cave is an absolute maze. It did not follow the same pattern as the cave in the original game did, so I didn't really know where to go. This is all a completely new layout. I just continued fighting my way through the enemies, because this was basically like an outdoor dungeon crawl. So I will say this right here, while you're watching me just continue on through the cave. There were a couple of boss battles in this cave, though at one point I ran out of materials and stuff, and I was just full on my encumbrance, so I never actually finished this cave this video, but I do kill a couple of boss battles, which we'll see. But I continued on where I find one of the boss battles that I mentioned earlier, a giant green dragon. Now, at this point in time, I was not sure if I'd be able to fight an actual green dragon. Babies, I know I could take on, but not adults. So I skipped the dragon for now and wanted to continue on to see the rest of the cave. Where the dragon was actually at the bottom of the cave. Sooner or later, I did find a way up to continue to ascend the cave. As you saw, well, I am right now in a minecart, but you saw a bridge right next to me. That was a bridge that would overlook down to the dragon. And further on, I found this huge ramp that led all the way further up into the cave. Though I had a surprise for me at the top. A world boss. Yep, and he had a star metal hammer. Oh, great. He actually hits pretty hard, and I didn't want him aggroed to me, so I waited until my followers could grab aggro from him first before I joined in. The last thing I wanted to do was die when I had come all this way. But sooner or later, once they managed to grab aggro, I joined the fight with using my bow, because one of the reasons why I had to end this episode short is because my axe broke. That's why you didn't really see a lot of fighting in this part of the episode, because my axe broke halfway through the cave venture. So yeah, that was kind of fun. I did have the bow, but it doesn't really do as much damage as the axe. Anyway, once I kill him, I get the Fragment of Power and a legendary repair kit. I could have used the repair kit on the weapon, but I figured I was toward the end of my journey anyway, so I didn't want to waste it just yet. I head out to the bridge, and I look down, and just like I was telling you before, the dragon is all the way down at the bottom, and there's all of these rafters and balconies up top. So crossing this bridge, I headed on to see if there was anything else. There was another exit to the cave that led out into the cliffside. I ran into a bunch of enemies, but without my axe, there's just no way for me to fight them, so I ran past them. Luckily, there were no enemies out there, and this is where I decided to end my episode. I Hearthstone home, and that's gonna be it for today. This concludes this episode of Conquering Kalimdor. If you enjoyed watching this, please subscribe, as I will be posting more videos on my adventures with this mod weekly. Like the video and feel free to comment below. Thank you for watching.